Level 1. The Lookout. You are 13 years old. You live in a house with a tin roof and a floor that floods every rainy season, water seeping in through the cracks under the door and pooling around the legs of the kitchen table. Your father left when you were 4. You don't remember his face anymore, only a smell, cigarettes, and engine grease that surfaces sometimes without warning. Your mother cleans houses 6 days a week for money that never stretches far enough. You share a bed with 2 younger brothers who are always hungry, who fall asleep some nights with their stomachs growling loud enough that you hear it over the fan. You've watched your mother cry quietly in the kitchen more nights than you can count, thinking you were asleep. You weren't asleep. You were listening, the way you've learned to listen to everything in this house, for trouble, for tears, for the sound of money running out before the month does. A boy from your street, 16 years old, wears new sneakers and a gold chain. He didn't have those 3 months ago. He used to walk to school with a hole in his shoe. Now he doesn't walk to school at all. He tells you there's easy work. Stand on a corner. Watch for police cars. Watch for strangers who don't belong. Watch for anyone who looks at the house too long. If you see one, you whistle twice. That's it. That's the whole job. He says it pays more in a week than your mother makes in a month. You believe him because you want to. You believe him because your mother's hands have started shaking when she counts the rent money on the first of the month, and you are old enough now to understand what that shaking means. Level 2. The Mule. You're 15 now. 2 years on, the corners taught you the streets, taught you which cars belong and which don't, taught you to read tension in a stranger's shoulders before they even speak a word. You know the rhythm of the block better than you know the rhythm of your own school schedule, which you've mostly stopped attending anyway. A man named Beto starts talking to you differently now, like you're worth something, like you're not just a kid anymore. He offers you a new job. Carry a backpack across town on a public bus. Don't look inside it. Don't ask questions. Just deliver it to an address written on a scrap of paper and come straight back without stopping anywhere else. The pay is 10 times what you made watching corners for an entire month. You say yes before he even finishes explaining the details. The first trip, your hands shake the entire bus ride, sweat gathering at the back of your neck, despite the air conditioning. You're convinced every passenger can see straight through the backpack, straight through your chest, straight into whatever it is you've become. An elderly woman sitting across from you smiles kindly and you almost throw up. A police checkpoint stops the bus 2 blocks from your destination. Officers board with flashlights, even though it's daylight. Your stomach drops into your shoes. An officer walks the aisle, checking bags 1 row at a time, moving closer with each seat. He stops at the seat in front of you, glances at your backpack sitting on your lap, and moves on without a word, distracted by a call coming through his radio. You don't breathe again until the bus pulls away from the checkpoint and the flashing lights disappear behind you. You deliver the bag to a man standing outside a hardware store who takes it without looking at you twice. Beto pays you that night and pats you on the shoulder like you're already one of them, already trusted, already someone who matters. You do it again the following week. And the week after that. You stop being scared on the 3rd trip, the fear replaced by something closer to routine, closer to numbness. That scares you more than the fear ever did, though you don't have the words to explain why to anyone, least of all yourself. Level 3. The Sicario. You're 18. 3 years of running product taught you the business from the ground up, taught you the routes, the codes, the men who could be trusted, and the ones who couldn't. And Beto has been watching you the whole time, quietly, the way a man watches something he's investing in. He calls you into a back room one night with 2 other men you don't know, men older than you with flat, unreadable eyes. "There's a problem," he says, lighting a cigarette he doesn't offer to share. A man who owes money and refuses to pay, who's been avoiding calls for 3 weeks now. Someone needs to have a conversation with him. You understand what conversation means before Beto even finishes the sentence. Understand it in the way your stomach turns cold before your mind catches up. You're handed a gun for the first time in your life. It's heavier than you expected, colder than you expected, the metal foreign against your palm in a way that makes your hand feel like it belongs to someone else. Your hands don't shake this time, not the way they shook on that first bus ride. You've spent 3 years training them not to, without ever realizing that was what the training was for. You ride in the back of a car to a small house on the edge of town. Nobody speaking, the radio turned low. The man who owes money opens the door himself, still in a t-shirt, still expecting a conversation. He sees the gun before he sees your face. What happens next, you will remember in fragments for the rest of your life, not as one continuous memory, but as pieces that surface at random moments, in dreams, in silence, in the space between sleeping and waking, in the sound of a door opening unexpectedly years later. You come home that night and shower for 40 minutes, scrubbing at hands that are already clean. The water runs cold before you feel anything close to clean. You don't sleep. You sit on the edge of your bed and watch the sun come up through a crack in the curtain, the light moving slowly across the floor, and something in you closes a door that will never open again, not fully, not the way it was before. Beto tells you the next day that you did well, that you did what needed to be done, that this is how a man proves himself. You start to believe that's true because believing anything else would break you completely, and you have brothers at home who still need you standing upright. Level 4. The Plaza Boss. You're 22. 4 years of proving yourself have moved you up faster than anyone in Beto's circle, faster than men twice your age who never quite earned the trust you earned in half the time. You control your own territory now, a plaza, a piece of the city where every corner, every dealer, every transaction runs through you and answers to you. You have 12 men working under you, men who used to be strangers and are now something closer to family, though you've learned by now that family in this business is a fragile, conditional word. You have a house with air conditioning and a real bed with a real mattress, the first real mattress you've ever owned. You send your mother money every month and tell her it's from a construction job, steady work, good pay. She stopped believing that story a long time ago, but she takes the money anyway because it pays for your brother's school uniforms and medicine when they're sick, and a mother's love, your learning, can hold two contradictory truths at once without breaking. You see her twice a month now, always for a few hours, always leaving before dark, so the visits don't become a pattern anyone could track. She hugs you a little too tightly each time, like she's afraid it might be the last one, and some nights you drive away wondering if she's right to be afraid. A rival crew starts moving product into the edge of your territory, small at first, testing the boundary the way water tests a crack in a foundation. You send men to have a conversation with them, the same kind of conversation Beto once sent you to have. The conversation doesn't go well. 2 of your men come back with injuries. 1 with a bullet graze along his ribs that will scar for life. 1 doesn't come back at all. You sit with his mother the next day in her small kitchen and hand her an envelope of money you tell yourself is enough, even though you already know. Sitting there watching her hands shake exactly the way your own mother's hands used to shake, that nothing is ever enough. You start carrying a gun everywhere now. Even to church on the rare Sundays, you still go, tucked against your back beneath your shirt while you kneel and pray for a forgiveness you're no longer sure you believe you deserve. You stop trusting new faces. You stop trusting some old ones too. Power, you're learning, is just a slower kind of danger than the corner ever was. Level 5, the Lieutenant. You're 26. The organization above you has taken notice of how you run your plaza. Clean books, low noise, steady profit month after month, without the kind of chaos that draws attention. They move you up into logistics for the wider region, coordinating shipments across state lines, managing routes through mountains and border towns, paying off the officials who make the routes possible in the first place. You meet a customs official over dinner at a restaurant with white tablecloths and a wine list you can't pronounce. He orders a bottle that costs more than your mother used to make in a month, and you don't flinch, though a younger version of you would have. You slide an envelope across the table before dessert arrives. He doesn't count it. He already knows the number, has known it for months. The arrangement is routine to him now as his own paycheck. This is how the business actually runs. You're learning, not through violence, but through spreadsheets and dinners and men in nice suits who never touch a gun, but move more product through a single signature than anyone on the street ever could with 100 corners. You start wearing suits too, tailored ones, the kind that fit like they were made for the man you've become rather than the boy you were. You buy your mother a real house with real air conditioning and a roof that doesn't leak, doesn't flood, doesn't let the world in through the cracks anymore. She cries when she sees it, though you can't tell if it's joy or grief or both at once, standing in a doorway that cost more than she made in a decade of scrubbing other people's floors. Your brothers are teenagers now, tall and restless. One of them asks quiet questions about your job, questions you deflect with practiced ease. You tell him to focus on school. You tell yourself he'll never end up where you started, on a corner with a cheap phone and a whistle. You almost believe it. A shipment gets seized at the border, $11 million of product gone in a single afternoon, an entire year's work vanishing into a government evidence locker. The organization needs someone to answer for it. It wasn't your route, your shipment, your mistake. But someone above you decides the man responsible was working under your authority, and authority, your learning, comes with a weight you didn't fully understand when you wanted it. You watch him disappear from a family gathering 3 weeks later, mid-conversation, a phone call pulling him outside and into a car that doesn't come back. You never ask where he went. You already know the answer, and you're learning that knowing and asking are two very different kinds of danger. Level 6, the Regional Commander. You're 31. 5 years of loyalty and results have put you in command of an entire smuggling corridor, hundreds of miles of routes, stretching through mountains and desert, dozens of crews, a payroll that runs into the millions each month. You report directly to the top of the organization now, a man you've met exactly 4 times in your life, always in rooms with no windows and men with rifles standing along the walls, silent, watching everyone, including you. A rival organization starts pushing into your corridor from the south, probing at first, then aggressive. What started as small skirmishes turns into an actual war within months, ambushes and counter-ambushes bleeding into every week. You lose 14 men in a single ambush on a mountain road, a loss that hits you harder than any number should, each name attached to a face you knew. A family you'll now have to visit with envelopes that never feel like enough. You retaliate within the week, and the retaliation cost the other side more than double that number. A math you didn't want to be doing but now can't stop doing every time a new report comes in. The war stretches across a year. You stop sleeping in the same house 2 nights in a row, moving between safe houses with armed men at every door and window, a life reduced to logistics and paranoia. Your youngest brother, 19 now, asks to join the organization directly, to work under you, to finally be part of what's built the house he grew up in during his teenage years. You say no more forcefully than you've said anything in years, the word coming out sharper than you intended. He doesn't understand why you get to have this life, and he doesn't. You don't have the words to explain that you didn't choose this life so much as it chose you the moment your mother couldn't pay rent, and that every year since has just been you trying to survive the choice that was made for you at 13. He joins anyway, through a different crew, a rival crew, without telling you, a betrayal that feels like losing him twice. You find out through a phone call that makes your blood run cold. You spend the next 6 months making sure nothing happens to him, pulling strings you shouldn't pull, calling in favors that will cost you later, in ways you can't yet see. He never finds out. That's the only mercy you allow yourself that year. Level 7, the right hand. You're 35. You sit in rooms now with the very top of the organization, a small circle of men who control an empire worth more than some small countries, men whose names never appear in any newspaper, but whose decisions move entire economies. You've become the man everyone answers to below the very top, the one who translates orders into action across an entire region, the bridge between the boardroom and the blood. Your wealth is no longer countable in any way that feels real, spread across properties under other people's names, in other countries that you've never visited and may never visit, numbers on documents that exist to hide you rather than to serve you. You have a wife now and 2 young children who believe you own a chain of successful restaurants, a story you built carefully over years, reinforced with fake invoices and staged visits to real restaurants that launder both money and truth. They live in a house with guards posted at the gate that they've been told are for security reasons related to your business success, a lie so thorough your own children repeat it to their friends without knowing it's a lie at all. Your wife knows the truth. She married you before the truth became this large, Back when you were still just a Plaza boss with a nice house, and now she carries it the way you carry it, silently, at dinner parties, at school functions, in the moments when other parents ask innocent questions about your work that she has to answer with practiced ease. You haven't slept through a full night in 3 years. Every phone call after midnight sends your pulse into your throat before you even reach for the phone. You've started keeping a bag packed by the door, cash, 2 passports, enough to disappear within an hour if the call ever comes telling you it's time. You don't know which direction the call will come from anymore, the government, a rival organization, or your own people deciding you've become a problem worth eliminating rather than a solution worth protecting. Everyone in this circle eventually becomes a problem to someone. You've watched it happen to 4 men who sat in this exact room before you, men who seemed untouchable until the exact moment they weren't. You wonder some nights, staring at the ceiling next to your sleeping wife, listening to her breathe, which version of that ending is waiting for you. Level 8. The target. You're 38. The federal government has assembled a task force with a single purpose, taking down the organization's inner circle, and your face is on a wall in a building you will never see, connected by red string to photographs of the other men in your circle, a web that's taken years to build and is now finally closing. Informants inside the organization have been feeding information to investigators for over a year. Careful, patient, methodical. You don't know who. Nobody knows who, and that uncertainty is its own kind of torture, turning every loyal face across every dinner table into a suspect you can't stop studying. 2 of the men who sat in the room with you last year are already gone. 1 arrested in an airport with his family watching, 1 found in a car outside a gas station 3 states away, and you still don't know which of those 2 outcomes is worse, capture or the alternative. You move constantly now, sleeping in a different city every few nights, communicating only through methods that are supposed to be untraceable but that you no longer fully trust. Encrypted phones you replace every week, code words that change too often to remember cleanly. Your wife takes the children to stay with her sister in another country, a separation that feels permanent even though nobody says the word out loud, and you speak to them through a screen instead of in person for months at a time, watching your daughters grow through a laptop camera that freezes and lags at the worst moments. Your youngest asks when you're coming home, her voice small and tinny through the speaker. You tell her soon, a word that has stopped meaning anything specific in your life, a word you use now the way other people use silence. A raid hits one of your safe houses 4 hours after you left it, the timing close enough to make your hands shake for the first time in years. You start to understand that the walls are closing in a way they never have before, not through the slow grinding pressure of rival violence, but through the patient, methodical pressure of an entire government machine that does not stop and does not forget and has more time and more resources than you will ever have again. Level 9. The Fallen. You're 39. It happens on an ordinary Tuesday morning, not in a dramatic shootout the way you always imagined it might, but in a quiet house on a quiet street where you thought, foolishly, you were finally safe. Armored vehicles surround the property before dawn, engines cut to silence 100 yards out. You hear the sound before you see anything, boots on gravel, doors being breached downstairs, voices shouting instructions in 2 languages that blend into a single wall of noise. You don't reach for the gun on the nightstand, though your hand moves toward it out of instinct before stopping itself. Some instinct, maybe the last human part of you, decides in that half second that your children will not lose both parents to violence on the same morning, so you raise your hands instead, slowly, deliberately, the way you once trained your own men to do when the roles were reversed. They take you out in handcuffs, past neighbors filming on their phones from behind curtains, past a helicopter circling overhead with a spotlight that hasn't been switched off yet, past a life that ends completely in the time it takes to walk from your front door to a waiting vehicle. The trial takes place in a country you spent your whole life trying to reach through smuggled product and never once visited as a free man before this. The courtroom translator repeats every word in a flat, professional tone that makes your entire life, every level, every choice, every body, sound smaller than it ever felt while you were living it. The sentencing is life without the possibility of release. delivered in a language you're only now, in this moment, learning to fully understand. You are led out of the courtroom in chains, and somewhere in the gallery your wife is crying into your oldest daughter's shoulder, and your youngest daughter, the one who used to ask when you were coming home over a laggy video call, is old enough now to understand that the answer was always never. She just didn't know it yet. And watching that understanding cross her face is the last thing you clearly remember before the doors close behind you. Level 10. The cycle. You sit in a cell that is 8 feet by 10 feet, 23 hours a day, alone with everything you've done, and everyone you've lost, and everyone you took from other families the same way violence once threatened to take from yours. A ledger that never balances, no matter how many hours you spend trying to make it balance. Your mother visits twice a year, older now, quieter, her hands finally steady because there's nothing left to shake about, carrying a grief she never speaks about, because there aren't words sized correctly for a son who is alive and gone at the same time. Your brother, the one who followed you into this life without your blessing, was killed 4 years before your arrest. A death you still haven't allowed yourself to fully feel, because feeling it means admitting you could have stopped it and didn't. That, all those months of pulling strings, bought him years instead of a lifetime. Your children grow up mostly through photographs mailed twice a year and phone calls monitored by someone else's government, voices changing on the line in ways you can hear but can't watch happen. Your oldest son is 17 now. He doesn't visit anymore. Your wife tells you, in the careful, guarded tone she uses for everything now, that he's been spending time with older boys from a rough part of the new city they live in. Boys who wear new sneakers and gold chains they can't explain to anyone who asks. You press the phone against your ear so hard it hurts, the plastic biting into your skin. You want to scream through the line that he has no idea what that road actually costs, that you would trade every year you have left just to erase the version of yourself that started exactly where he's standing now, 13 years old and hungry for something he can't name. But you already know, better than anyone alive, that warnings from men like you have never once been enough to stop a boy who is hungry and 13 and watching someone with new sneakers he desperately wants to become. Somewhere right now, in a town that looks exactly like the one you grew up in, a boy is standing on a street corner with a cheap phone in his pocket, watching for cars that don't belong, waiting to earn money his mother needs too badly to ask questions about. He has no idea what the whistle in his mouth is about to cost him. He'll find out. He always does. The cycle continues.